On Earth, gravity is constant. It shapes everything. The way we walk, the way we stand, the way our bodies function, even when we are not aware of it. From the moment we are born, gravity is always present. It pulls fluids downward. It keeps muscles engaged. It defines orientation, up and down. But in space, this constant force is no longer experienced in the same way. In orbit, astronauts are not beyond gravity. Gravity is still there, but they are in a state of continuous free fall. This creates the sensation of weightlessness, a condition often referred to as microgravity. At first, this can feel unusual, even disorienting. The body is no longer anchored. There is no clear sense of direction. Up and down lose their meaning. Movement becomes different. Instead of walking, astronauts push gently off surfaces, floating from one point to another. Small movements produce motion, and without friction, that motion continues until something stops it. This new environment affects the body in many ways. Some of these changes are immediate, others develop over time. One of the first noticeable effects is the shift of fluids. On Earth, gravity pulls fluids toward the lower parts of the body. In microgravity, this pull is reduced. Fluids redistribute, moving toward the upper body and head. This creates a feeling of fullness in the face. Astronauts sometimes describe it as a mild pressure, or a sensation similar to having a cold. At the same time, the lower body may appear slightly thinner, because fluids are no longer concentrated there. This shift affects more than appearance. It influences how the cardiovascular system functions. The heart does not need to work as hard to pump blood upward, because the resistance created by gravity is reduced. Over time, this can lead to changes in heart function. Another immediate effect is disorientation. Without gravity, the inner ear, which helps maintain balance, receives different signals. This can lead to a condition known as space adaptation syndrome, a form of motion sickness. Symptoms may include dizziness, nausea, difficulty focusing. These effects are usually temporary. The body adapts. Within a few days, most astronauts adjust to the new environment, but the initial transition can be challenging. Research supported by NASA studies these effects in detail. Understanding how the body responds to microgravity is essential for long-duration missions. Private companies like SpaceX contribute by enabling missions that carry humans into space more frequently, providing more opportunities to study these changes. Microgravity also affects movement. On Earth, muscles constantly work against gravity, even when standing still. In space, this constant effort is no longer required. This leads to changes in muscle use. Some muscles are used less, others are used differently. Coordination must be relearned. Simple tasks become unfamiliar. grasping objects, stabilizing the body. Even turning around requires adjustment. Over time, astronauts develop new ways of moving, efficient, controlled, adapted to the environment. The absence of gravity changes not only how the body functions, but also how space is experienced. There is no floor, no ceiling, only surfaces. Every direction is available. This creates a sense of freedom, but also a need for awareness. Because without careful movement, it is easy to drift, to rotate unintentionally, to lose orientation. The human body is adaptable. It responds to new environments. It adjusts. But these adjustments come with changes. Some are temporary, others require careful management. Understanding these changes is essential because as space travel extends beyond short missions, the ability of the human body to function in microgravity becomes a central consideration. On Earth, the human body is constantly working against gravity. Even when standing still, the skeleton supports weight. Bones are not static structures. They are living tissue. They respond to stress. They adapt. They rebuild. When a person walks, runs, or simply stands, small forces travel through the bones. These forces signal the body to maintain bone density, to keep bones strong. But in space, this process changes. In microgravity, the body no longer needs to support its own weight in the same way. The mechanical stress placed on bones is greatly reduced. And when that stress is reduced, the body begins to adjust. Bone tissue is continuously broken down and rebuilt. On Earth, these processes are balanced. In space, that balance shifts. Bone breakdown begins to exceed bone formation. As a result, bone density decreases. This process is gradual, but significant. Astronauts can lose a measurable percentage of bone mass during extended missions. The areas most affected are those that normally bear weight: the spine, the hips, the legs. These regions experience the greatest reduction in mechanical stress, and therefore the greatest changes. This loss of bone density is similar to conditions seen on Earth, such as osteoporosis, but it occurs more rapidly, over months instead of years. This makes it an important area of study because it affects both short-term health and long-term recovery. When astronauts return to Earth, their bodies must readjust to gravity. Bones that have lost density are more fragile. There is an increased risk of injury. Rehabilitation is required to restore strength, to rebuild density. Research supported by NASA focuses on understanding this process and finding ways to counteract it. One of the primary methods is exercise. Astronauts use specialized equipment designed to simulate weight-bearing activity, resistance machines, treadmills with harness systems, cycling devices. These systems create forces that mimic the effects of gravity. helping to maintain bone strength. Nutrition also plays a role. Calcium and vitamin D are important for bone health. Careful monitoring ensures that astronauts receive the nutrients they need. Even with these measures, bone loss is not entirely prevented, but it can be reduced, managed, controlled. Understanding bone loss is essential for long-duration missions, especially those that may involve travel to Mars or beyond, because the longer the mission, the greater the potential impact, and the more important it becomes to maintain skeletal health. Alongside changes in bone density, muscles are also affected by microgravity. On Earth, muscles work constantly. Even simple actions require effort. Standing, walking, maintaining posture, all involve continuous muscle activity. In space, this constant demand is reduced. Without gravity, the body does not need to support its own weight. As a result, certain muscles are used less frequently. Over time, this leads to muscle atrophy, a reduction in muscle mass and strength. The muscles most affected are those involved in posture and movement against gravity. The legs, the back, these muscles become less active, and without regular use, they begin to weaken. This process is similar to what happens on Earth during prolonged inactivity, such as bed rest. But in space, it occurs more consistently because the environment itself reduces the need for muscle use. Astronauts must actively work to counteract this effect. Exercise is a central part of daily life in space, not optional, but necessary. Time is set aside each day for physical activity, using equipment designed for microgravity. Resistance systems simulate weight, allowing muscles to be engaged, maintained, strengthened. These exercises are carefully planned, targeting different muscle groups, ensuring balanced activity. Without this routine, muscle loss would be more severe. Coordination is also affected. Movement in microgravity is different. It requires new patterns, new habits. Astronauts learn to move efficiently, to stabilize themselves, to control motion. This involves different muscle use. Fine motor control becomes important. Small adjustments, precise movements. Over time, the body adapts. It learns new ways of functioning. But this adaptation is specific to the space environment. When astronauts return to Earth, they must readjust again. Gravity returns. Muscles must support weight once more. Balance must be regained. This transition can be challenging. Rehabilitation is often required to rebuild strength, to restore coordination. Research supported by NASA continues to study muscle changes in space, developing strategies to maintain strength during missions. Private companies like SpaceX contribute by enabling longer missions, providing more opportunities to study how the body responds over time. Muscle changes are not simply a side effect. They are a central factor in human spaceflight. They influence performance, health, recovery. Understanding them is essential for the future of long-duration missions. And as exploration continues, maintaining muscle function becomes a key part of sustaining human presence in space. On Earth, the circulation of blood is influenced by gravity in ways that are so constant they are rarely noticed. When a person stands, gravity pulls blood toward the lower parts of the body. The heart must work against this force to move blood upward toward the brain. Valves in the veins help maintain this flow. Muscles assist by contracting and pushing blood through the vessels. This system is balanced, refined over time, adapted to life under constant gravitational pull. In space, this balance changes. Microgravity alters the distribution of fluids throughout the body. Without gravity pulling blood downward, fluids shift toward the upper body. This redistribution is one of the most immediate changes experienced by astronauts. The face may appear slightly fuller. There is a sensation of pressure. The nasal passages may feel congested. These effects are often described as similar to a mild cold. At the same time, the lower body experiences a relative reduction in fluid volume. The legs may appear thinner, less full. This shift is not only external, it affects internal systems as well. The cardiovascular system adjusts to the new environment. Because blood is more evenly distributed, the heart does not need to work as hard to pump blood upward. Over time, this can lead to changes in heart function. The heart muscle may become slightly smaller because it is doing less work. Blood volume may also decrease. The body adapts by reducing the amount of circulating fluid. This is part of a broader adjustment, a new equilibrium. But this adaptation has consequences. When astronauts return to Earth, gravity once again pulls blood downward. The cardiovascular system must readjust. At first, this can lead to dizziness, a temporary difficulty in maintaining blood pressure when standing. The body must relearn how to regulate circulation under gravity. This process can take time. It requires careful monitoring. Research supported by NASA examines these changes in detail, studying how fluid distribution affects overall health and how the body adapts over time. Understanding blood flow in microgravity is essential because it influences many other systems, including the brain and overall physical performance. Private companies like SpaceX enable longer missions, providing more data about how these adaptations occur over extended periods. Blood flow is not something we usually think about. It is constant, automatic. But in space, it becomes something that must be understood, managed, and carefully observed. The brain depends on a stable environment, consistent blood flow, balanced pressure, reliable sensory input. In space, some of these conditions change. The shift of fluids toward the head affects the pressure within the skull. This can influence vision. Some astronauts experience changes in eyesight during long missions. Objects may appear slightly blurred or differently focused. This condition is associated with changes in fluid pressure around the eyes and brain. It is an area of active research. Scientists are working to understand the exact mechanisms involved and how to prevent or reduce these effects. Beyond physical changes, the brain also adapts to a different sensory environment. On Earth, orientation is defined by gravity. The inner ear provides signals about balance and motion. Visual cues reinforce this sense: up, down, stable. In space, these signals change. The inner ear no longer detects gravity in the same way. Visual references can be ambiguous. There is no fixed floor or ceiling. This can lead to initial disorientation. The brain must reinterpret sensory input. It must learn new patterns. Over time, this adaptation occurs. Astronauts develop a new sense of orientation. They become comfortable moving in 3 dimensions without relying on traditional cues. This adaptation is gradual, quiet, but significant. Cognitive function is also an area of interest. Long-duration missions involve isolation, confinement, limited communication with Earth. These factors can affect mood, attention, decision-making. Maintaining mental clarity becomes important. Structured routines help. Clear schedules, defined tasks, regular communication all contribute to stability. Research supported by NASA studies these psychological and neurological effects, developing strategies to support mental health during missions. Private companies such as SpaceX contribute by advancing mission design, improving living conditions, enhancing communication systems. The brain is adaptable. It responds to new environments. It learns, adjusts, reorganizes. But these changes must be understood because they influence performance, safety, and overall well-being. In space, the brain does not stop functioning as it does on Earth, but it operates under different conditions. And understanding those conditions is essential for the future of human spaceflight. On Earth, sleep follows a natural rhythm. Day and night create a cycle, light and darkness signal when to rest and when to be active. The body responds to these signals through internal processes, often referred to as the circadian rhythm. This rhythm influences hormones, body temperature, and levels of alertness. It is deeply connected to the environment. In space, this natural structure changes. In orbit, a spacecraft may circle Earth approximately every 90 minutes. This means that astronauts can experience multiple sunrises and sunsets within a single Earth day. The rapid alternation between light and darkness can disrupt the natural sense of time. Without a stable external cycle, the body must rely more on internal regulation. To maintain a consistent schedule, astronauts follow structured routines. Sleep periods are planned, work periods are defined. Artificial lighting is adjusted to simulate day and night cycles. This helps support the body's internal clock. Even with these measures, sleep in space can be different. Without gravity, the body does not press against a surface. There is no sensation of lying down. Astronauts often sleep in sleeping bags that are secured to a wall. This prevents drifting. The body remains in a stable position, but the experience is not the same as on Earth. There is no pressure from a mattress, no contact with a surface that defines orientation. Some astronauts find this comfortable, others require time to adapt. The absence of gravity removes certain physical cues. The body does not experience the same distribution of weight. Muscles are not engaged in the same way. This can affect how the body transitions into sleep. Noise within the spacecraft can also influence rest. Equipment operates continuously. Air circulation systems create a constant background sound. These sounds are not loud, but they are present. Over time, astronauts adapt. The sounds become part of the environment. Light control is another important factor. Artificial lighting can be adjusted to create a more natural cycle. Dimming lights before sleep, brightening them during waking hours. This helps regulate the circadian rhythm. Research supported by NASA studies sleep patterns in space, examining how microgravity and environmental factors influence rest. Understanding sleep is essential because it affects performance, attention, decision-making. Private companies like SpaceX contribute by designing spacecraft environments that support better living conditions, including improved lighting systems and quieter interiors. Sleep in space is not absent. It is different, adapted, structured, a process that requires attention and adjustment. And over time, the body learns to rest even in an environment without gravity. When humans first enter microgravity, the body must adjust to a new set of conditions. This adjustment does not always happen immediately. One of the most common early experiences is space adaptation syndrome, often referred to as space sickness. It is similar to motion sickness on Earth, but caused by different factors. On Earth, motion sickness occurs when there is a mismatch between visual input and the signals from the inner ear. In space, the situation is different. The inner ear is adapted to detect gravity. It helps determine orientation, balance, movement. In microgravity, these signals change. The inner ear no longer detects a constant downward force. At the same time, visual cues may not provide clear orientation. The result is a mismatch. The brain receives signals that do not align. This can lead to symptoms: nausea, dizziness, disorientation. These effects are usually temporary. They occur during the initial phase of adaptation. As the brain adjusts to the new environment, the symptoms decrease. Most astronauts adapt within a few days. The body learns to interpret sensory input differently. New patterns are established. Movement becomes more natural. During this adaptation period, activities may be adjusted. Workloads may be reduced. Time is given for the body to adjust. Understanding this process is important because it affects the early stages of missions. Research supported by NASA examines how the brain adapts to microgravity, developing strategies to reduce discomfort and improve adaptation. Private companies like SpaceX incorporate these findings into mission planning, ensuring that crew members have time to adjust and that environments are designed to support adaptation. Space sickness is not a long-term condition. It is part of the transition, a phase that reflects how the body responds to a new environment. It shows how deeply human perception is connected to gravity and how adaptable the brain can be. Given time, the body adjusts. It finds new balance, new stability, and movement becomes natural once again. As human spaceflight moves beyond short missions in orbit, the focus shifts towards something more demanding: time. Spending days or weeks in space presents one set of challenges. Spending months or even years introduces another level entirely. Long-term missions require the human body to function in microgravity for extended periods. They require systems that can sustain life without interruption, and they require stability: physical, mental, operational. In orbit, astronauts already experience missions lasting several months. These missions provide valuable data. They show how the body adapts over time, how changes accumulate, how systems respond to prolonged exposure to microgravity. Bone density decreases, muscle mass reduces, fluid distribution shifts, cardiovascular function adapts. These changes are manageable over shorter durations, but over longer periods, they become more significant. Countermeasures are essential: exercise routines, nutritional planning, medical monitoring. Each plays a role in maintaining health. But long-term missions involve more than physical adaptation. They involve isolation, confinement, distance from Earth, communication delays, limited variation in environment. All of these factors influence mental well-being. Structured routines become important. Clear schedules, defined responsibilities, regular communication with Earth, even if delayed. Psychological support is part of mission design because maintaining focus and stability over long periods is essential. Research supported by NASA studies these conditions, simulating long-duration missions on Earth, analyzing how individuals respond to isolation, developing strategies to support resilience. Private companies like SpaceX contribute by designing spacecraft capable of supporting longer missions, improving life support systems, enhancing living conditions. Long-term missions are not a distant concept. They are already being tested, gradually, step by step. Each mission extends the duration, expands the understanding, and prepares for the next stage. Among all potential destinations, Mars stands out. It is distant, challenging, yet more accessible than other planets. A mission to Mars would involve traveling for many months, living in space during transit, then adapting to a new environment. Mars has gravity, but it is weaker than Earth's, about 1/3. This introduces a different set of conditions, not microgravity, but reduced gravity. The human body would need to adapt once again. Bone density, muscle function, balance, thus all influenced by the new environment. Mars also has a thin atmosphere. It does not provide the same protection as Earth's atmosphere. Radiation levels are higher. Protection becomes essential. Habitats must shield occupants. Suit systems must support activity outside. Temperature is another factor. Mars is cold. Conditions vary widely. Resources are limited. Water must be sourced or transported. Air must be generated. Food must be produced or carried. These challenges require careful planning. Systems must be reliable, redundant, capable of functioning without immediate support from Earth. Communication delay is significant. Signals can take many minutes to travel between Earth and Mars. Real-time control is not possible. This requires autonomy, both in systems and in crew decision-making. Research supported by NASA explores these challenges. Testing technologies, studying environments, preparing for potential missions. Private companies such as SpaceX are developing spacecraft designed for Mars travel. Large systems capable of carrying both cargo and crew. Mars survival is not only about reaching the planet, it is about living there, functioning, maintaining health, sustaining activity over time. As space exploration advances, a fundamental question remains. What are the limits of the human body? How far can it adapt? How long can it function in environments different from Earth? The human body is adaptable. It responds to new conditions. It adjusts. It finds balance. But adaptation has limits. Microgravity affects bones and muscles. Radiation affects cells. Isolation affects the mind. These factors accumulate. Over time, they define the boundaries of human capability. Understanding these limits is essential because it informs mission design, duration, distance, support systems. It determines what is possible and what requires further development. Research supported by NASA continues to explore these limits, studying how the body responds, how it recovers, how it can be supported. Private companies like SpaceX contribute by enabling longer missions, providing opportunities to gather more data, to test new systems, to extend the boundaries gradually. Human limits are not fixed. They expand with technology, with understanding, with experience. What was once impossible becomes possible, step by step. But even as limits expand, they remain important. They define the pace of exploration. They shape the path forward. And in understanding them, we learn not only about space, but about ourselves.